Hi guys, Julia here from JM Squared Vintage. Welcome back to the channel. Today I am here with something a little bit different. So what if I were to tell you that making this one change in your reselling routine could double your sales, or in my case, more than double my sales, without doubling your effort? You guessed it. We're talking about cross-listing. I get so many questions about cross-listing, all different aspects of it. So I figured I would pull together a whole video and we go deep dive into the nitty-gritty of cross-listing, talk about what it is, why you should do it, the potential pitfalls. Let's break down all the different marketplaces that you can cross-list to. And I'll be walking you through kind of how I do it and my reasons for doing things the way that I do it. So hopefully that helps you make decisions that make sense for your unique business. But before we get started here, guys, if this is your first time here, if this is your first time stumbling on my channel, first and foremost, welcome. I am Julia. That is my name. We talk all things thrifting and vintage and the business of reselling on the internet here. If that sounds like something that you might be into, consider hitting subscribe down below. I would love to have you along on this journey. But without further ado, guys, we have a lot to talk about. So why don't you go grab yourself your notebook, grab yourself a snack, grab yourself a drink. You know I've got my matcha latte. So sit back, relax, and let's chat about cross-listing. So before we get started here, guys, I do want to take a quick minute to thank Vendoo for partnering with me on this video. I also want to be very, very clear here. Even if this video was not sponsored by Vendoo, we would be talking a lot about Vendoo because I really do run my entire business out of it. I pay for it out of my own money, and I have been since basically the beginning of my reselling journey. So whether this video is sponsored by them or not, again, we would be talking a lot about it. I've worked with them for a long time, and I've talked about them a lot, whether it's a sponsored video or not. I really use Vendoo every single day. It is pretty much open on my laptop all the time, and it is the platform out of which I run my entire reselling operation. I just wanted to be very clear that whether they sponsored this video or not, my opinions are my own, and that I am a real user and real lover of their platform. So first, we are going to start off with the basics. Maybe I've got some brand new resellers out there that are thinking about cross-listing or just heard that term and they're not sure what they're talking about. Plain and simple, cross-listing is the act of taking one single item and simultaneously listing it across multiple marketplaces. So say you're somebody who's been selling clothes out of your own closet on Poshmark and you're interested in kind of stepping that up into a little bit of a side hustle. Maybe you love to thrift and you want to start feeding some things in. So you would basically be taking the items that you have for sale on Poshmark and cross-listing it on whatever other marketplace you choose to cross-list it on in an effort to boost its visibility and hopefully get it sold faster or for a better price. That's it. That's what cross-listing is. Now, there are lots of different marketplaces that you can cross-list to. So for the purposes of this video, we're going to go through all of the different marketplaces that Vendoo feeds into. So conceivably, if you have one item, you can cross-list this to all of these different marketplaces while only writing your listing just once. But let's break them all down and talk a little bit about the businesses, kind of what they do, who should sell on it, maybe who shouldn't sell on it, because there's a lot of conversation around that. And this is honestly one of the biggest things that I get questions on. So I am primarily a clothing reseller. I do some housewares, I do some accessories, but for the most part, I'm about 95% clothing. So that being said, if you're a clothing reseller, chances are you started on Poshmark. So Poshmark was founded in 2011, and they really got their start as a place where you could sell items out of your closet. In terms of their buyer base, you're looking at predominantly women, predominantly in the US and Canada, and they're skewing millennial and Gen X. So for Poshmark, naturally, clothing is king, accessories. You'll also see the occasional home goods and beauty products. Although I do believe, I don't sell any beauty products, so I don't know the ins and outs, but I do believe that if you are selling beauty products, they have to be brand new in box and sealed. And I'm also fairly sure that perfume sales are not allowed. Period. Now, as of the day that I'm filming this, they just changed their shipping to USPS Ground Advantage. So that might change. I believe that one of the big holdups with perfume was the fact that it was going via air freight. So what to know about selling on Poshmark? Engagement is key. More on that in a minute, because that part of it can be very, very time consuming. And really with the advent of professional resellers, a lot of just casual sellers and, people who are just selling out of their closet find themselves getting lost in the shuffle. So we'll talk a little bit more about the engagement part of this, but for now, on to the next one. The next marketplace we're going to talk about is eBay. And eBay is really the behemoth in this crowd here. It's been around the longest. It was founded in 1995, but it is the largest global peer-to-peer selling marketplace. The buyer base here is broad. Pretty much everybody is a target audience, everywhere from like collectors to bargain hunters. The clientele does tend to skew a little bit older than other marketplaces, but regardless, the reach is absolutely massive on eBay. So if you're coming in as a clothing seller, I would say eBay is the next place that you want to be cross-listing on just because of the sheer size of it. So I know eBay can be very intimidating to people who have never sold there before or have maybe only sold one or two things kind of one-off there. And we're going to talk about those concerns a little bit later, so just hang tight on that. But for the most part, if you're cross-listing to one additional marketplace, I would say let it be eBay. So next up, we are going to talk about Depop. Now, Depop is a little bit older than I think we all think it is. It was founded in 2011. It was based in London, and it is actually owned by Etsy right now. The buyer base here definitely skews younger. You're going to have a lot of Gen Z folks in there. You're going to have a lot of younger millennials, and it tends to be very, very like trend and aesthetic driven. I love the user interface of Depop. Personally, I think that it gives a lot of visibility to things that would fall through the cracks on other platforms. Your best sellers here are going to be vintage pieces, lots of Y2K pieces. Streetwear does really well on Depop. Handmade and upcycled clothing does really well on Depop. Now, obviously, those are the things that sell the best over there, but I have sold all manner of things on Depop. So don't discount it. I think that they are really working on growing their buyer base, and that's going to just kind of deepen what does well over there. But for the most part, that is what you're working with on Depop. Next up, we're going to talk about Mercari. Mercari is based out of Japan, founded in 2013, and personally, of all of the different reselling platforms, this is my favorite in terms of like buyer interface. I have a marketing background. I've spent a lot of time working on websites. So user interface is something that I care deeply about. And I also understand the impact that a clean and easy to use interface can have on sales. So for that purpose, I wish Mercari was doing a little bit better. They're definitely smaller than any of the other core marketplaces that I use anyway, but they tend to have a similar buyer pool to Poshmark. I find that it's a lot of people that have had kind of bad experiences over on Poshmark that hop over to Mercari, but it has a very similar buying demographic here. Mercari also does a lot more like home goods than something like a Poshmark does. So you're going to have a lot of clothing mixed in with a lot of home goods and a lot of collectibles. But this is also a really good place to make sure you're listing if you do sell home goods or toys or stuffies or anything like that. Next, we're going to touch on Etsy. Now, Etsy is an interesting one. This is one of the marketplaces I do list certain things on. The main thing to know about Etsy is that per their terms of service, the items have to be either handmade or vintage. And when they say vintage, that means 20 years or older. So as of right now, it's 2025 when I'm filming this video. Everything has to be from 2005 and earlier. Now, I have an Etsy shop that is going on 12 years old now that I sell a lot of vintage housewares on, but I will also cross-list my vintage pieces that I pick up over on Etsy. And I've had pretty good success selling over there. But buyer base is predominantly female, predominantly Gen X and millennial. If you are somebody who picks up vintage pieces while you are outsourcing, I think it's a great idea to start an Etsy shop. Etsy has been coming under fire recently for allowing a lot of like print on demand stuff there, but I found that that issue has affected more the handmade side of Etsy versus the vintage side. I mean, you can't like print on demand a 1960s skirt, right? So like if you are somebody who does dabble in vintage or you have access to good vintage, take the time to set up your Etsy shop and crosslist there. Why not? It's literally like 5 additional seconds when you're listing an item. That's it. Another marketplace that they feed into is Grailed. Now, Grailed is an interesting one. This is definitely a male-dominated platform, really big in like streetwear and designer. It's called Grailed because it's all about the grails, right? So this is the kind of place where you're going to find that rare Supreme t-shirt or that, limited edition Jordan from 2002. Like this is the kind of stuff that you're going to see over there. So if you pick up that kind of stuff, or if that's something that you sell, you absolutely need to have Grailed on your radar. In terms of buyer pool here, you're really playing in, fashion, vintage, or streetwear focused millennial men. A lot of the Gen X men that are into this kind of stuff are over on Depop. So if you are listing on Grailed, you absolutely also need to be listing on Depop to kind of hit those two demographics. So if that's your niche, Grailed, Depop, eBay, right? This is like the hype beast of the reselling world. Next, we're going to talk about Vinted. Now, Vinted is a marketplace that was founded over in Lithuania. It's been around since 2008. So this has been around a long time, longer than Poshmark. And it is massive in Europe. It's got a similar buyer pool to Poshmark, but of course, more European. They're not huge here in the US yet. However, with how big they are in Europe and with how well they're run, watch this space, because I have a sneaking suspicion that Vinted is kind of gearing up to make a big push in the US market. With all the different marketplaces kind of going up and down like they have been, there is room for a new player to enter this arena. One thing to think about with Vinted is that they have no seller's fees. Now, I think that has been their big holdup because US audiences have been reactionary to other marketplaces, eliminating seller's fees and putting it on the buyer. So if I have to guess, I mean, obviously I don't have a crystal ball and I'm not in their offices, but if I have to guess, they're trying to figure that structure out before they make a play. Another marketplace that they offer is Vestiaire. Now, Vestiaire is another European-based marketplace. It's been around for a long time. I think it's based out in Paris. Where Vestiaire really shines is in the luxury space. So if you're a luxury bag seller, high-end items is like all you do, Vestiaire might be a good play for you. If you sell mostly like mall brands, a lot of like American Eagle, Old Navy, stuff like that, this might not be the best marketplace for you just because the fees tend to be really high when you're at the low end price-wise. It's known for luxury and people go there for luxury. Also very big in Europe as well. Be on the lookout for them to be growing in the States. We cannot be talking about reselling marketplaces without talking about Whatnot. Vendoo also feeds into Whatnot. Now, Whatnot does have a static sales platform, just like a Poshmark. Where Whatnot shines is in their live selling platform. Originally, it was built around like collectible cards. So say you got, a couple packs of Pokemon. You could put a camera on your hand, open the packet right on camera and sell the cards as you're discovering what's in the pack, right? That's kind of where Whatnot came from, but it's grown to be a much bigger platform. People sell all manners of things. They sell housewares, toys, kids' clothes, high-end, mall brands, you name it. If you are somebody who is comfortable on camera and are interested in that kind of interactive selling experience, I would probably recommend doing Whatnot over doing Poshmark live shows, just because the buyer base is much, much bigger. The only thing here with Whatnot, you're generally going to sell more things, but at a lower profit. So it just really has to make sense to your business, your inventory, your time, etc. It is fed into from Vendoo, but just know that it is available to you. And finally, we're going to talk about Shopify. Now, Shopify is not really a marketplace. Shopify is a selling platform. I've run several mid-sized businesses on the Shopify platform, so it is used for everything from a single reseller in, Temecula, all the way up to like fairly large direct-to-consumer products, right? So Shopify is something that you can feed into from Vendoo, which is fantastic. The only thing with Shopify is it is a time investment at the onset to build your website, and you as the seller would be 100% responsible for the traffic that gets to your page. So if you are somebody who is not interested in like having a YouTube or having an Instagram and building your audience, building your traffic to your website, Shopify is probably not for you. But if that is something that you're interested in and you want to get away from seller's fees, because that's a real thing, Shopify is a great option. I know a ton of people, again, I've been on Etsy since 2013. I know a ton of people who have built their businesses over on Etsy and slowly but surely transitioned into Shopify storefronts, and they have been very, very happy that they've done so. But just know that while all of these other marketplaces have built-in audiences, more on that in a second, Shopify, it's 100% on your plate. So that is all the marketplaces that Vendoo feeds into, a little bit of a breakdown. Hopefully that was helpful. I know a lot of people have had questions about what to sell on. I sell on my 4 core: Poshmark, eBay, Depop, Mercari. I list certain things on Grailed, certain things on Etsy, and certain things on Vestiaire. All right, now let's chat a little bit about why you should be cross-listing. And I mean, you should probably already be connecting the dots, but at the end of the day, reselling is a numbers game. The more eyeballs you can get on your item, the more likely it is to find the buyer that is looking for your item, right? Plain and simple. So say you've only been selling on Poshmark. Poshmark's active user base is about 80 million people. In contrast, eBay's active user base is about 135 million. Add in Depop at about 30 to 35 million, and then Mercari at about 20 million, and you more than double the potential buyer pool for each one of your items. And that's only if you're using the same 4 core marketplaces that I am. Again, if you are a luxury seller and you're not on Vestiaire, you're missing out on whatever Vestiere's active user base is. And that is a highly targeted luxury buyer pool. So the fact of the matter is, if you can more than double the eyeballs on your items, you can more than double your sales. And in my case, I'm going to give you some real numbers here. I sat down and I crunched the numbers on basically my sales going back to January of 2024. And as a clothing reseller who started selling clothing on Poshmark and then started cross-listing, I crunched the numbers with my sales on Poshmark versus my sales on my cross-listed platforms. And overall, from January 2024 to today, Poshmark accounted for 49% of my sales, actually a little bit under 49%, and all of my other marketplaces accounted for a little over 51% of my sales. Now, as you remember, Poshmark started pushing live sales in about April of last year and pretty dramatically changed the landscape for closet sellers. I don't sell on live shows, so it has changed fundamentally for me. I mean, obviously, if you do live shows, get your bag, right? That's 100% do what works for you. But if you look at 2025 in a vacuum and you take out those early 2024 months, Poshmark only accounts for 45% of my sales versus 55% being my other cross-listed marketplaces. So it's a pure numbers game. It's a few extra seconds on each listing that it takes to cross-list it once I've written my listing, and it more than doubles my sales. I think one of the other things that we need to talk about is over the last couple years, certainly since I've had my YouTube channel, we've had a lot of marketplaces kind of changing things around. You saw last year, Mercari went from having all of the fees on the seller to all of the fees on the buyer. That did not go well for them. Depop did the same and actually still has that structure and it is working for them. So that's an interesting aspect. And Poshmark has kind of messed around with that stuff. They tried that whole extremely complicated fee structure a few months ago. It didn't go well for them. So the thing that I always think about, I'm somebody who likes to hedge my bets, right? At all times. Every step I make in my business is calculated 86 ways to Tuesday. And I always want to have a safety net, right? So when you cross-list, when you've built up your presence on multiple different marketplaces, you're kind of insulated in a way from a specific marketplace kind of fiddling with their things. I know a ton of people who are current cross-listers who started cross-listing last year when Poshmark did that crazy thing with their fee structure. And if you are one of those people, please leave in the comments down below how much your sales have increased since cross-listing. I would love to hear your experience, especially starting right at that very kind of tumultuous time. So at its core, cross-listing can do amazing things for your bottom line. It can really accelerate your business. It can insulate you from specific business decisions that different marketplaces make. And using a cross-lister like Vendoo has some additional perks that we're going to talk about a little bit later. But if the only thing it did was help me cross-list my items, I'd still be on board. Now, if you are somebody who has never cross-listed before, I'm sure you've started to have a few questions pop into your mind. Because there are some potential pitfalls if you're thinking about cross-listing and kind of doing it on your own. I get that there's a fee for a cross-lister, but in my humble opinion, as a reseller who really considers every purchase that I make to support my business, this is not the place to skimp. There are other places you can cut costs. This is not the place to skimp. But probably the first thing that would come into your mind, and this is the thing that kind of terrified me at first before I learned that cross-listers existed, is what happens if you sell something on eBay and you're not fast enough to delist it on all of your other marketplaces? That should strike fear in your heart. So Vendoo has a feature that if you sell something on one of your marketplaces, it auto-detects it. It'll delist it within about a minute from every other marketplace that you have it listed with. So, not having to babysit your marketplaces is a really big deal, right? And I know some people out there will be like, oh, well, one mistake won't really matter. Well, let me kind of walk you away from that ledge real quick. Most marketplaces have some semblance of a seller rating, and almost all of them take into consideration seller-initiated cancellations. And your seller rating is going to affect your placement in search results. Obviously, SEO comes into play. That's a whole other conversation conversation, but make no mistake about it, your seller rating will affect where you are placed in search results. It is bad business if you have had cancellation after cancellation, you're providing a bad experience for buyers. It is bad business for a marketplace to be putting you forth because they are in the interest of having their buyers have a good experience. So they're going to put their best sellers at the forefront. And when you think about something like eBay, now I'm just kind of pulling a number off the top of my head. Like, listen, it happens from time to time. I've had it happen to me. There was something where I found some damage that I hadn't seen before. There was one time where I literally couldn't find the item. I'm still looking for it. I have no idea where it is. But when you think about it, eBay does its seller ratings on a percentage, right? So say you sell about 50 items a month on eBay, and say their seller defect rate is 2% before you kind of get a negative tick on your seller rating, before you lose top seller rating, right? Like any one of these factors can make you lose top seller, and you do not want to lose top seller. Say you had to cancel 2 of your items this month because they sold over on Poshmark. You're right now at 4%, right? So you've already lost your top seller unless you make it back up. And if you're thinking that all you have to do is sell 2 more items and ship them to make it up, your math is wrong. You have to sell basically an additional 50 items in that month to get back down to 2%. So when I say that doing that can be very damaging to your reputation, and in reselling, your reputation is everything, I mean it. So take that deadly seriously. So having that sale detection feature kind of take care of all of that business for you is huge peace of mind, especially if you are somebody who has a day job, if you are somebody who has kids, if you are somebody who has a life, if you're busy, if you're traveling, whatever the case may be. It's something that happens without you having to pay attention to it, without having to even look. For me, I also use Vendoo as my inventory management software. So it's not a traditional inventory management software, but for me, I don't list anything directly in any platform. Everything I do goes straight into Vendoo and then fed out from there. And in that way, I have a centralized place. So all of my stuff is kept like neat and tidy. There's no real like fragmented parts that are living only in Poshmark or only in eBay or whatever, So using Vendoo allows me to just really keep everything neat and tidy in one place. I don't have to worry about 5 or 6 different sets of floating inventory kind of out on islands. Everything is centrally located and feeds out from there. When I need to make changes, I make the changes in Vendoo and feed them out. Another potential concern that I get a lot from people is like, listen, I've been selling on Poshmark for 10 years. I've got 400 items in my closet. I don't even know where to start when it comes to setting up a crosslister. Well, the good thing is with Vendoo, you can actually import items. You can go in and import 100 items at a time, and it'll be able to tell which items have been imported and haven't been imported. So you don't have to like keep track of that. So you import everything in. The one kind of nuance to that is that different marketplaces have a couple different things that have to be entered a specific different way. So for example, say you're bringing things in from Poshmark and you are going to start cross-listing to amongst other marketplaces, because you should be cross-listing to as many marketplaces as you can, you're going to be sending into eBay. So eBay on like standard clothing has a separate condition field. So you'll need to add that in. You're not going through the whole process of like copying the listing and manually entering everything and uploading the pictures. Like you're basically, once you import all of those items into Vendoo, you are about 93% of the way there. From there, it's really just, under a minute to go through and just kind of make sure you have all the fields that the individual marketplaces require and publish them out. So it literally will cut the amount of time it takes to cross-list by like 95%. It's a ridiculous amount. And I'm a big fan of bite-sized chunks. So if that is something that you are interested in doing, import 100 items and do 5, 10, 20 a day, whatever you have time to do. It's super simple. It's something that I do when it's like nighttime and I'm unwinding. I put on a TV show. It's kind of busy work, right? It doesn't require a ton of thought process because the thought's already been put into creating the listing. It's really just kind of making sure that like the boxes are checked that need to be checked. Let's hop over to the computer so I can show you kind of how that works. So from the main page here, you just click on this little button that says import. So for our case right now, we're going to look at eBay. So say I want to import this. So you can do up to 100 at a time, but for now we're just going to do one. So we'll pull this, just click import items. And then that's it. You just click start cross-listing. And there it is. You click in here. So now you've got the listing up. So now you're in here. You've got the listing all done. All of the pictures were imported. All of the copy was imported. And now it's just time to cross list. So you've already got everything set up in eBay. So you just click into Poshmark. The only thing you need to add in here is the original price, and then that's it. And you just do that with all of your listings. A second concern that I get a lot is that people are really intimidated by eBay in particular. I need to remind you that eBay is absolutely massive, and eBay is engineered for people who are high volume technical sellers. So they basically have every potential little thing available for people who are selling the highest tech, the most detailed products. For the most part, you don't need to fill out all of the things that they have. Now you can go in, once you've listed them, this is up to you, you can go in and kind of add in attributes. It's not really necessary as long as your listing is done thoroughly and you've got a lot of keywords and you've got the tags in and your title is well keyword. Again, go and check out the other video that I did about this. We go really into depth on keywording. You will be fine. You can go as deep as you want to with eBay, but it is not necessary. Just being on eBay and having access to that buyer pool is enough. And if you play around in Vendoo, you'll kind of see what they have available. Vendoo can be used for any kind of item, but Vendoo is particularly well designed for clothing resellers. So if you just go into their interface and you look at their eBay listing page, you'll kind of get an idea of what you need. But really, when I'm listing something, once I write that listing, it's 2 or 3 little things that I need to add on the eBay page, and that's it. And eBay accounts for almost 50% of my sales. And I'll stress this, I know eBay is intimidating. It is overbuilt. We know that. But the fact of the matter is, when you just start out with eBay, if you don't have any reputation, if you don't have any kind of scoring under you, like if you mess up on something, it's not going to be a huge deal. eBay, and really all of the marketplaces for that matter, are very much a long game, right? Like it's all about building up your reputation. So the best time to start doing eBay was 3 years ago when you started doing Poshmark. But in the absence of that, the next best time to start is today. So just try a few and get your head wrapped around it. I promise you will figure out what you need to know about eBay very, very quickly. And the last thing I get a ton of questions on, and this is mostly in reference to eBay, is kind of the differing return policies and the shipping question. Because all of the other marketplaces, at least the core marketplaces that I sell on, kind of do the shipping for you. eBay is a little bit different in that you have to kind of put in dimensions. And this is kind of how I work it. Now, I predominantly sell clothing. So 99.9% of the stuff that I sell is gonna fit in a similar size envelope, right? So I just standardized my packaging, right? So the envelopes that I get these poly mailers. I always have them linked down below. I get these poly mailers. They're, I think, 19 inches by 15 inches. And for the most part, most items of clothing, when folded, are somewhere between 2 to 4 inches thick. So that's what I put in. I put in 19 by 15 by 2 or 19 by 15 by 4. If I have something that's going to be quite a bit bigger than that, I just kind of measure it ad hoc. But for the most part, when it comes to USPS Ground Advantage, the size of a package isn't going to change the price of shipping until you get into either oversized packages or non-standard packages. So oversized packages is over, I think it's 130 inches length and girth combined. So that's pretty big. And then non-standard would be something like, a large poster tube, or, you're shipping a bike frame and it's a big, huge, unusually sized box. So for the most part, unless you're selling something that is larger than clothing, the size isn't going to really matter. My packaging weighs a pretty standard amount. I always use packing paper and then one of the envelopes. Sometimes I double it up for a little extra protection depending on what I'm shipping. But for the most part, that's going to add X amount of weight to my package. And then if I'm not sure what the item will weigh, I'll throw it on a scale. I just have like a regular little food scale that I got from Amazon. I want to say it was like 10 or 15 bucks. But for the most part, if I'm selling a silk shirt, that's going to be under 6 ounces. So my recommendation to you is, if you're a little concerned about it, go onto eBay or go into the USPS postal calculator and kind of figure out where the price breaks are. I'm pretty sure that the price breaks are at something like 4 ounces, 8 ounces, 12 ounces, and then 16 or a pound. So after doing this for as long as I have, I can kind of like hold it in my my hands and know that, all right, that's not quite 6 ounces, but I don't think it's quite 11 ounces. So I'll just put in for the weight the top end of the weight bracket that I think it will land in. And 99.9 times out of 100, I'll be good. On the rare occasions that something ends up being a little bit heavier than what I estimated, they will just come in and charge my account, which is fine. It's usually for $1 or $2. So I don't even bother with it. I'll put it this way. It's not worth spending the time individually weighing each thing. But that is how I run it. If you are selling clothing, that's my tip. Standardize your packaging, know the weight brackets, and then anything that's big or unusual or non-standard, you just kind of do ad hoc as it comes along. But once you figure out your flow with that, honestly, listing on eBay is just as fast as listing on Poshmark. I hope that makes sense. Once you're in there and you're kind of fiddling around with it, it'll make a little bit more sense. But that's how I do it, and it saves me so much time. So that is how I use Vendoo as a cross-lister. So right off the bat, just with the cross-listing, it takes my effort down from about 10 minutes to 2 minutes, and it saves me about 20 hours a month. And that's just the cross-listing. The other perks of using Vendoo is all of the other features that they've added. So they've got the bulk import, they've got a bulk edit tool. So if you ever need to like change prices on, 200 items at a time, you can do that from one page instead of having to click in and out of each and every page. That is a total lifesaver if you've ever had to make changes to multiple listings at once. And it's one of those things that you won't know how handy it is until you actually need it. But they've also been adding on features that take the other busy work off of our plates. So with Poshmark, they really built Poshmark to be like a social selling tool. So being engaged, sharing your closet, sharing other people's closets is a big part of your placement in search results. So it is advantageous to you to be sharing your closet multiple times a day, because part of their algorithm, we don't know the nitty-gritty of their algorithm, but we do know that part of their algorithm is that they do sort by recently shared. And the same goes for Depop. Depop has a similar function with refreshing, where you can refresh your listing and it'll kind of get a little bit of an edge in the search results. And Grailed does the same thing. They have like a bump feature where you can bump listings and bump them up higher in the search results. Vendoo has a sharing feature that handles all of that for you. Let me show you how easy this is to set up. So you come over here to the little star, that's your Pro Tools, and you click into Marketplace Sharing. So say we want to start a new program for Depop to refresh at a specific time every single day. So you click into Depop. So I've already got a few times set, but let's set a new one. So we know that there's a lot of Gen Z, and we know that there's a lot of like younger kids on this app. So let's do one at like 3 p.m. when a lot of like early shifts are over, maybe college classes are ending. So let's set one up for there. So you just set up the max amount. So that is all of the listings that you have on Depop. You can select your refreshing order, whether you want to do it random, bottom to top, whatever. I like to do random, and you can set your speed. So that's really a matter of preference. I like to just go normal. And then we just click schedule refreshing. So say, again, we want to do that 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm on the East Coast. So let's say 6 p.m. And then you can say every day if you want it to repeat every single day. And that's it. And we're set up. So you can program this on Depop, on Poshmark, and on Grailed. And again, it's a set and forget situation. It basically just kind of runs all the time without you thinking about it ever. The other thing they have set up is marketplace offers. Now, if you're already a reseller, you probably already at least have an inkling that so many sales go through as a result of offers that we send to potential buyers or offers to likers. But the fact of the matter is, again, we've got lives, we've got kids, we've got jobs, we've got things going on. So we can't always be on top of these things to throw an offer out when we see that somebody liked it. So you can basically set this up to automatically send offers to the likers of your items in a timely fashion, so that the offer is actually hitting them probably while they're still scrolling or while they're still shopping. So let me show you how easy this is to set up. So you can do this one of two ways. You can either send offers manually. So say you want to do it every night at 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. or whatever. You can go in here and say, okay, cool. I've got X amount built up in eBay. Let's send an offer. You can send a note. You can do this however you want to. You can also set this up to do auto offers if you prefer them to go out at that kind of timely interval that I was talking about. let's set this up for eBay. I already had this running. I had to turn these all off so I could show you guys how I do this. So we're in eBay, right? You can base the offer price on the Vendoo price or on the marketplace price. You can set limitations. So say you have a bunch of things that cost $2,000 or $3,000 and you don't want to run these offers on. You can put pricing guardrails on there, and you can set your offer amount. You can exclude things. So say you don't want to send offers on items that have been newly listed, you can limit that here. You can limit specific categories, brands, labels, etc. So I generally don't like to send offers on things that I've just listed, especially if I have something that I know is like super high in demand. So basically everything here is all set. I don't have a ton of super high priced items or anything like that. So I don't really put guardrails on it. So if everything looks how you want it to look, you just come up here, you click active, and there you go. That's set. I never have to think about this again. Vendoo already saves me about 20 hours a month just in the cross-listing portion of what it does, but it also frees up additional time taking those kind of busy work type tasks off of my plate. So cross-listing can absolutely boost your visibility, really drive your sales up. It does have some challenges, but using a tool like Vendoo solves pretty much all of those problems. But one way or another, I cannot recommend cross-listing enough. So regardless if you're a part-time reseller, a hobby reseller, or a full-time reseller, if you are not cross-listing, you are literally leaving money on the table. In my case, more than 50% of my sales. But that is it, guys. I hope this was helpful. I've been kind of taking notes over the past couple months of the questions that I get on cross-listing. I hope I addressed everybody's concerns. I hope I answered everybody's questions. If you need any more clarification, don't hesitate to drop a question down in the comments. I always try to be on top of those. But let me know if you are already cross-listing, what marketplaces are you cross-listing to and what do you sell? I'm interested to hear your experience. Obviously, I've got visibility to my data set, but I can't see what's going on with somebody that sells a lot of home goods or, consumer electronics. Let me know what you're selling and where you are pushing it to, and how has cross-listing boosted your sales. If you guys want to go a little bit deeper into the keywording aspect of boosting your visibility, again, I'll link my keywording video down below. Hopefully that's a little bit helpful. Again, thank you to Vendoo for partnering with me on this video. If you are interested in giving them a try, click the link down in the description box below and you'll get 25% off of your first month. And if Vendoo is something that you like, or if you are already a user of Vendoo and you don't know that you can do this, don't forget to sign up for the annual plan. When you sign up for the annual plan, you get up to 2 months free, and free is for me, right? And I think we all love free, especially when it comes to our business expenses. That's profit, baby. And don't forget that the fees for a cross-listing platform are tax deductible. So when you're doing your business taxes at the end of the month, don't forget to include them. But guys, I hope you had fun. If you did, please consider leaving a like or a comment on this video. Of course, don't forget to hit subscribe. I would love to have you along on this journey, but without further ado, guys, I hope you have the most beautiful weekend. Happy hunting, and I will see you all in the next one.